So, Geraldine, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today.
Awesome. Yay.
So, Geraldine, you run the Ferment Kitchen.
Yep.
So, tell us a wee bit about that, and then we'll get into why you started it. And
Cool. So I am teaching fermenting all sorts, like all the veggies, fruits, drinks, sourdough, um, and I'm wanting to teach people how to do it instead of selling the product. Like bring back this old knowledge, like everyone around the world, everywhere made at least a handful of ferments and ate them daily with a meal. And so we sort of lost that with canning and fridges and the addition of preservatives to our food. But we've only really lost it for a couple of generations. And so I want to bring that back. Do my bit to bring that back. Yeah.
And what got you into it in the first place?
So
hold on.
Yeah,
back that up a wee bit. So were you always into like growing your own food and fermenting at home, or were you like most people and just buying anything off the supermarket shelf? Or
I would have said that I was healthy pre-children, but my view of health was probably quite a bit different to what it is now. It certainly didn't include organic food. It would have been like a scone was really healthy because I made it. But then, like, when I took scones to my first Western Price meeting, they were like, well, did you soak the grains? And were they whole grains that were organic? And I was like, oh, no to all of those things.
I've got a lot to learn.
And no one touched the scones. But yeah, and I guess it was like eat 5+ a day, just kind of like general health ideas. And then so then I had my firstborn, and she's about to turn 12, and as she was sort of approaching the age 6 months going to start eating, I thought, I really want to do right by her for this. And what would that look like? And I heard about this Western Price group because I saw someone on the news talking about raw milk, and I thought, why would you even consider that? But I was curious, so I went along to this Western Price meeting with the scones, and then in a few weeks I had learnt to make sauerkraut and kombucha and brine pickles, and I was sold on the flavours as well as going, okay, they're saying it's good for me, so I'll go with that.
But and it's like it tastes good, but it also makes you feel good, right?
Yeah, well, that sort of came.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'd really had flavours like that before. Like really sour brine pickles and kombucha's so big and bold, and I was just like, wow, what is this stuff? Like I was so confused, but like really intrigued.
And so you just started experimenting and making it home and learning.
Yeah, so my first brine pickle that I ever made, I made a huge 2-litre jar, and I just got really excited.
You're going to have to. What's a brine pickle?
Oh, yeah.
I know some things.
Yeah.
No,
I know. I get this question all the time, actually. So yeah, think gherkins. Are in like a vinegar brine now, but originally it would have been a salt brine. And so when we make a brine pickle, we just fill a jar with your veggies and then pour salt water over top of it and let it ferment. And it could be ready within 3 days, and it will last for up to a year. And they will get more and more tart and acidic, and they'll be hopefully quite retain their crunch, but they might not. They might go a bit soft, and there's different things that contribute to that. But and the flavours become more complex.
So it's raw veggies in there.
Yeah, raw veggies, and so it's probiotic. As opposed to your vinegar pickling. Preserves, everything is sort of pasteurized through the cooking. So it's a great way to preserve, and it's also delicious. It's just not probiotic. Different outcome. So I made this giant brine pickle, and it felt really great, and I was super excited, so I chucked in all this extra stuff, and then I tasted it a few days later, and I was like, whoa, that's disgusting. And I just promptly shoved it back in the cupboard, and 2 or 3 months later, I was like, I really should do something with that. And so I pulled it out. And I'm just so thankful that I was kind of brave enough to go, I could have one more taste before I throw it all away. And it was like the best brine pickle I still think that I've ever made.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it all had come together.
That same batch that you thought was terrible.
Yeah. So I just shoved it to the back of the cupboard for however long, and then came back and everything had mellowed and come together beautifully. And and that's kind of when I went, whoa, what is this thing? What is happening here?
So I mean, with myself producing milk and raw milk, I get questioned a lot about whether it's safe or
Yeah.
So with fermenting, I'm just thinking of that.
Yeah.
Is there any risks of I guess it comes down to how you do it and doing it right.
It's actually just a very safe process.
Mm-hmm.
And Sandor Katz, who's kind of the American guy who's responsible for revitalizing fermentation in the West,
Mm-hmm.
he says that our fermented vegetables are safer fermented than they ever were on the supermarket shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're doing is like setting up this ideal environment for our good bacteria to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do thrive, the whole thing gets more and more acidic.
Mm-hmm.
And mold and putrefying bacteria don't like that acidic environment.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't survive. So you kind of like weed them out by the beautiful process. Yeah. And then like if you see that your ferment went moldy and you personally don't like mold, then you could discard it. And some people just pull it off and continue to eat it. Other people let the whole thing go. Mm-hmm. I've had one batch of sauerkraut in that 12 years that went putrid. Mm-hmm. So it does happen, but it's so unusual. And when it happens, there's just no way your body could ever ingest it. Like, it's not a risk.
It's gotta be,
it's like, what? Yeah. And that was living on the bus and like the extreme fluctuations in temperature.
Yeah.
Just completely threw it off. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. Mm. Yeah. And I guess fermentation has been around for a long time, right? Mm-hmm. It's what's the do you know the earliest history of it?
Oh, well, it depends which ferment you're talking about, but it is amazing. I mean, like some people would say, humans didn't discover fermentation; we were discovered by it, kind of thing. And like mammals.
That's interesting.
I know. I can't.
That's interesting.
Like, what does it mean? Sounds bland.
I'm going to think about that.
I know. And like mammals in the wild will seek out fermented foods, like fruits and things. So it's more like something.
Yeah, what's an example of that?
Like berries and things.
So something that's fallen off and
and rotted but fermented. Yeah. Huh. And so apparently there's like this natural pull for a mammal towards these things, and so it is like, how did it come about? It's like it's an unknown.
I guess thinking about animals. Cows love fermented grass, silage.
Right. True.
They love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it must be so great for their gut health, is it?
Yeah.
And it's preserved. Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so we've got like hieroglyphs in the Egyptian pyramids of people eating like flatbreads, and then they're risen, and so that's kind of like the first documentation of sourdough. Mm-hmm. And they reckon that someone literally just left out the bread too long, and it spontaneously rose, like it does. Kombucha it's like, I think the first records are around 3,500 BC.
Really?
Yeah, and it came out from China on the Silk Roads and was known as the tea of vitality.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and sauerkraut was created by the people building the Great Wall of China, and they were eating cabbage during summer and needed to be able to continue eating it over winter. And then it came out again.
So I guess historically, is fermenting food often to preserve it, to eat it through winter?
Yeah, well...
Not always, but I guess...
Yeah. I mean, so this is people say, oh yeah, it's for preservation of food. And that makes sense. You can extend, like, you can take milk and yogurt will last a lot longer. Mm-hmm. And then sauerkraut, kimchi, all your brine pickles will last up to a year. And so you ferment your harvest, and then you've got fresh veggies all through the year. And the nutrient value actually increases through fermentation.
Nutrition increases?
Yes, the nutrition increases. But then I think humans are pretty smart, and you can tell that this thing is alive and it's good for you, and there's kind of like, there's something pretty special. This is what I love about fermentation, is it's kind of sparky and magical and alive, way better than a packet of dead chocolate biscuits kind of thing.
Yeah.
Way more interesting.
Yeah. So do you think that if someone's eating fermented food regularly, like sauerkraut or yogurt or kimchi or something, do you think that they are going to notice, as I'm asking this question, I'm thinking of the answers already, it'll depend on what else they're eating. But if they're eating a generally healthy diet,
Yeah.
are they going to notice a improvement in their health or just general how they feel because of it?
I hope so. It's so tricky, and you don't want to make big claims.
No, I guess so.
And also the research is so few and far between for fermented foods because who's going to back it? Like, what big company is going to go, you should, fund sauerkraut research when it costs your $3 cabbage will make 3 jars. There's just no money in it. So there's really little data on it. But I had some pretty cool stories from people. One woman came up to me and at a Wallistown workshop, and she said, 5 years ago, I was at your first pantry workshop, and you taught us how to make kombucha, and I've been making it ever since, and my whole life has changed. And she reckoned she had all these gut issues that have been resolved.
Wow.
So that was really amazing to hear.
Yeah.
And another one early on had been, another woman had severe arthritis and had been adding pineapple to her kombucha, and pineapple's really good for, I think it's reducing inflammation. It's something to do with arthritis. It's really beneficial. And, those nutrients of the pineapple being increased through the fermentation in the kombucha. And she said she just experienced amazing healing. Yeah, I've had lots of cool stories like that. Yeah. And then there's the increased digestibility of your whole meal when you add something fermented to it, and especially meat as well. Like sauerkraut helps your body digest meat, and that's amazing, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think that if we look at traditional diets, they have the meal and there's this small fermented component every time. So it might be sauerkraut or kimchi or soy sauce or a condiment.
Is soy sauce fermented?
Yes.
What?
And miso and tempeh. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Soy sauce is amazing ferment, yeah, and made in the big barrels. I think, yeah.
Is the stuff you buy at the supermarket fermented?
Yep. It's probably I don't know, depending on the quality, but most of it, from what I know, goes through a fairly traditional process. Still, it'll be shorter though.
So, that's interesting.
Tole.
What? So how's that made?
Oh.
Well, what's
I think it's miso first, isn't it? And then it's using the miso base to make soy sauce. Oh gosh, I don't know. I've watched stuff on it.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, have a look into it. You see these cool images of loads of barrels and things. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I should know. Oops.
Yeah. Well, do you make soy sauce?
Not yet.
No. Well, there you go.
That's on the list though.
That'll be on the next podcast.
Yeah.
We'll be sampling some.
Yeah, I want to make tempeh next as my next mission. And you
What's
make
that
with fermented soybeans, and that's you have tofu, but then the tempeh blocks, you can see the whole bean. Yeah, and it's like a fermented curd block. But I want to try it with we're growing broad beans, so make a broad bean tempeh. See if I can make it with what I've got instead of buying in soy. So we'll see.
And so, what are the foods that you make most often yourself at home?
So I'm doing yogurt every week, and I'm doing.
Is that Caspian?
That's Caspian sea yogurt, and you just make that at least once a week. And I've been doing that for years now. I do water kefir, which is a drink that you need to make several times a week to keep it going. And so you know how you get big kombucha scobies. So these are little grain scobies. Yeah, and they're beautiful. And you feed them sugar, and then they multiply, and they're like little gems.
You're talking about it like it's your little pet.
It is my pet. It is. I've got so many pets.
That's cool. You got lots of pets.
Got lots of pets. Yeah. This is why I love it though, and I'm like, people who need friends and pets should have ferments.
Yes.
Especially if you're in a rental and you can't have a dog, maybe you should have a sourdough bug. Yeah. But yeah, so water kefir is a beautiful, quite a light fermented drink, and then we flavour it with heaps of fruit, and the kids love that. Sometimes we flavour it with Barker's cola, and they're like, it's better than Coca-Cola. They love it. Yeah. They don't know what Coca-Cola tastes like. Sometimes I make kombucha, but at the moment, I've just been doing the kefir. It's quite hard to keep too many drinks going. And then I've always got a supply of vegetables on hand. It'll be a combination of kimchi and sauerkraut and brine pickles. Yeah, so the cupboard's pretty stocked up. But at this time of year, it's all last year's ferments. It's kind of some pretty weird
Some interesting shades in
things. And sometimes I'm like, what was that? And when did I put that in there? And I've got one jar, and I just can't remember if it was my experimentation with fermenting kidney or if it's something else. And I'm just too scared to open the jar, so I just keep putting it to the
Kidney?
back. Yeah.
Can you ferment meat?
Yes. But I haven't had a lot of success, hence my hesitation
so
to open up the
what's
jar.
the history of that? Like,
well, again, it's just preservation, right? So we like salt it, we dry it, we cure it.
Yeah, I've heard of those things, but maybe I'm just looking under a rock.
No, it's just that these things are quite common. Like a silver side would originally have been salted.
I guess so.
Yeah. And now it's more like chemically brined and stuff, unfortunately.
It's just not the same as my grandma used to make.
It's not.
If you're watching Grandma. You made really good silver sides.
Yeah. This is the bit. Like, I think all of what we're trying to do with food at the moment is so big. And so we're trying to do everything en masse, and you just lose that joy and magic in it all. And it's like, I think that's why fermentation is awesome. You kind of bring some joy back into your food and diet. Yeah. Yep.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. We made like 90 kilos of kimchi last year.
90 kilos.
This is so amazing. Planted out like 140 cabbages, the Napa Chinese cabbages, some daikon and spring onion. And then maybe the garlic. Yes, the garlic. And then we brought in chili and ginger. And just had this huge bathtub of kimchi that we went on to sell. It was so beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
And so with the Ferment Kitchen, how are you teaching people? Like, are you doing workshops? Is it online?
Bit of both. Yeah. I do online stuff at the moment. The sourdough courses are pretty popular. And I'll do like one-off, like recently I did a brine pickle class for an hour, and so some people joined that live, and now for like the next year people can just kind of contact me and buy it.
So Melissa, my wife,
yes,
she must have done a sourdough course online.
Yep.
And got starter. And she said to pass on to you that it's in the fridge, and she kind of hasn't done anything with it, and it's gone a bit of a funny colour. Yep. And she wants to know if she can still use it or what's happening with it.
Cool. So, yeah, and no idea how long it's been in there.
I don't know. It's been...
I'm trying to remember when I dropped it off to your mailbox. It's over a year ago, I'm pretty sure. But she might have been making it for a while before it went into the fridge. So let's run through a few scenarios. But the going a funny colour is probably just a bit of oxidation. It's probably fine. And the fact is, it's going to be absolutely starving. But it's not necessarily dead. I've heard of people leaving sourdough starters in the fridge for months and then coming back. And in my courses, I always say, no longer than 2 weeks. Remember, it's your pet. Don't do that.
You gotta feed it.
Yeah. But,
so how do you feed the starter?
So you're giving it flour and water. It's a living leavening agent. So this is your yeast. So it's so fascinating. So you bring it out of the fridge, bring it to room temperature so it can handle the feed. And you might even put it in a new jar. And then give it a 1-to-1-to-1 feed, which is giving it the same amount of flour and water as there is starter. And give it rye, or nice organic rye. If it's going to come away, it'll come away with that. And then as the starter starts to digest the flour, carbon dioxide is produced, and that's the bubbles, and it lifts up and it rises. And then it finishes the feed, holds, and then drops back down. Yeah.
So I usually only eat the food instead of making it. So,
always one of those. Yeah.
So with the starter, how do you go from there to making the sourdough? Do you take a piece of that?
Okay. Yeah, there's lots of different ways to do it. So really simple process. Therefore, there's like 100 variations of it. But my take on sourdough is really chuck it all in there, and it's very relaxed and then maybe even a little bit lazy. But so we take some sourdough starter on the rise, mix it with flour and water to kind of get a cakey sort of texture, consistency, and then let that rise again. And when it's at its peak, then you bake it. Yeah. But it's like super relaxed, right? A lot of people doing stretch and folds or kneading it, all this kind of thing. Yeah. Someone recently said my sourdough was mum sourdough. Like, You can keep making it if you're busy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And so that's starter. So you take a piece of that out, and then you just keep adding and feeding to the starter.
Keep That's how I do it. So my sourdough starter lives on the bench beside my yogurt, beside all the ferments that I'm currently brewing.
We need a photo of it.
I know. I love my kitchen bench. I love it because it's alive and it's colourful and it's always changing. Like every couple of days there could be like nothing, and then there'll be like 10 jars, and then they all disappear again, and then out comes this. And
that's cool.
Yeah, it's alive. And I'm tired of seeing. I'm not tired. I'm done with seeing like sterile clean kitchens and magazines.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no.
And then you open a pantry, it's full of plastic bags. And
from another
processed
country.
food and,
yeah.
Oh, that gripes me when you buy something and you think it's from New Zealand and you realise it's from somewhere else. It's like, man, why am I eating this?
I know. But I want us to really value like that messy kitchen again, because it's messy because it's being used and loved and lived in. Yeah.
That's cool. So, talking about all this food and fermenting, what's your, I guess, what do you think is wrong with the food? Should I open that can?
No, I'll keep it positive.
I can kind of guess where we're going to go with this, but what do you think's wrong with the food system, or the food that most people have access to, and then how do people switch from buying all the processed food made by big industrial companies to eating healthier and doing this kind of stuff that you're doing? I know. What's wrong, and then how do we change it? Well,
in 1 minute, please.
What's your opinion?
I think there's like this parallel with kind of like the globalization of our food and fermenting. And like when you ferment at home, you create this beautiful probiotic product. Mm-hmm. You increase the nutrient value. You stop the ferment when you're happy with the taste, or you let it go because you want it tangier, and it costs you almost nothing, just the cost of the veggies and a bit of salt or a bit of sugar for your drinks, this kind of thing. And there's joy in it, and there's wonder, and there's control and independence. And then when you start creating ferments to sell on a big scale, you might have to pasteurize them and then inoculate them again with some other bacteria so that it's still probiotic. Or you might find a $15 bottle of kombucha when it costs you 50 cents to make.
So that's a good question. So the kombucha you get at the supermarket, that's the wrong way of putting it. That's produced at scale to be sold.
May or may not be probiotic.
But it's going to be total. It's not going to be the same as what you would make at home, is it?
Never the same. Like just fermenting is never the same en masse, and I think that's what's happened with our food system. Is everything has had to be en masse, so all the joy is lost, all the independence, the beautiful flavors, and you have to spray everything so much because you're trying to grow too much of it. Like, it's too big. Yeah. And so, what if we could bring it smaller?
Do you think? Lots of
Maybe
people.
You guys.
Do you think lots of people have forgotten what real food tastes like?
I think we've absolutely forgotten, but
or just don't know. Maybe they never knew.
Yeah. Oh, it's sad. But people are too busy. I mean, we're forced into this position. Like, it's not like I don't believe a lot of people have the desire to. Everyone's going to want to eat good food, and everyone wants to feed their children healthy food, but. What if you just can't? You don't have the skills or the time or the money, or even like me. Like I didn't even know that I probably wasn't eating very healthy food originally.
Yeah, I was going to say it's. I guess when I grew up, this is just what we ate.
Yeah,
and it's taken me 40 years to figure out that most of the food I was eating was poison. I heard recently that it's like. If you want to get the same amount of nutrient value from your meal as someone did 2 or 3 generations ago, you probably have to eat 6 times the amount of food because our food is so crappy. I mean, I didn't read that myself. I just heard it. I don't know how true, but this idea that we're just not getting as much
from our food as well.
I could see that could be true.
Yeah, so sprayed.
Yeah,
and it's travelled so far. And all of this.
And a lot of food has been bred or changed, or I can't think of the word. I'm not meaning genetically modified, but selectively bred, so that it does a certain thing, which makes it either resistant to sprays or higher production.
Yeah.
And often, my understanding is that the trade-off to that is less quality and less nutrition.
Yeah.
So, and it's just like milk that we do.
Exactly,
People don't know what real milk tastes like unless they're drinking our milk. But
the milk is perfect, so it's not going off and being, powdered down and then remade up. And
it just all depends. I guess with most milk goes to a factory, gets taken apart and put back together the minimum standard they can call milk, which isn't actually milk. Well, it's the components of milk, but it's not what milk was when it came out of the cow.
Okay. Yeah. So the solution.
So what's the solution?
I mean, I think is it something like there's got to be joy in it again, and like I just keep thinking if there was somehow we could bring back parts of joy, then you're less likely perhaps to throw out so much food, and there might not be as much waste, and you might take a little bit more care or decide to learn something new, or rip up a bit of grass and grow a line of spuds, or I don't know, some sort of, and more local. It has to be more local, doesn't it? We have to be more self-sufficient locally, or community sufficient.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's all possible. We just have to be fairly brave and committed, because everyone is so busy. And like with fermenting specifically, there has to be a certain amount of courage, because like I said earlier, it's not like a packet of chocolate biscuits. Like your ferments burp and smell and change colour, and
they audibly burp.
like so many times I'm like, where's my house? I'm sitting on the couch alone. I'm fuck's sake. And it's like it's the sauerkrauts hissing because they're gassing off. And I always forget about it. And then like you get these waves of bacteria that come, and the wave will set up the optimum conditions for the next wave and then die off. Like how beautiful is that? And so when that wave of bacteria dies off, you get all the sediment on the bottom of your ferment, and it changes colour, and your kombucha scobies grow babies, and it's just like all these amazing things. But you've got to be courageous and kind of go, it's still safe, it's still good, and I can try it. I'm like, to people I've heard so many times, like I made sauerkraut but I couldn't eat it. So I'm always like, day 1 maybe lift the lid, and day 2 have a smell, and day 3 have a piece, because it's so foreign.
If you haven't tried it before, it's and it's like you said at the start, it's a whole different taste, and
it's big.
It's not like the bland stuff you get elsewhere.
But that's where the bit of fun comes in as well. Then you start, when you realise that you can do it and you have done it, then you can get a little bit playful and add in different things. And
then you work out that if you leave it for a certain amount of time, it's the right taste for you. If you go too long, it's too strong, or similar to since we've been making yogurt, I get a real kick out of it. I enjoy making it. It's good fun. And kind of tinkering with the time and the that it's incubated for, and getting the right taste and texture. And it's just so, and you get that right, and you do it the same every time, and it's spot on.
Cool. That's hardly the case for fermenting.
No, but it's if you like, I've been measuring the time and trying to get the process, and then if something's not quite right, I go back through and figure out.
Oh, good on you. I wish I could be like that.
What changed? What I did. But I guess we're doing it in
commercial,
well, a few hundred litres at a time.
Yeah.
So it's not large scale, but it's not just a jar on the bench.
This is
either.
it. Yeah. No, it's pretty big. Yeah. You don't want to be messing with that kind of quantity. Yeah. But that sort of fun and play with it is what I love. Yeah. Like, not that I'm writing it down, although I wish I would, but like, I recently had a guy come to my Winton sourdough workshop, and then he messaged me a few weeks later and was like, so when I've got a day on the farm, I ferment it in this place with 3 baking dishes stacked on top of the fire, and here's the bread rising. And when I'm going to be having this kind of day, I put it into this cold spot, and I can, he could make the sourdough work for his routine, and he was so engaged in like this process, and it's amazing. It's joyful. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And just being able to, I guess it's interacting with your food.
Yeah. And then you're like, I don't know, then you value it more, and then you're, like I say, less likely to chuck it out, or
and you know what's in it.
Yeah.
You know what's been done to it.
Yeah.
If you've grown the veggies or whatever to start with,
Yeah.
you know exactly what's in it.
Yeah. I know I bought sourdough from the supermarket recently, and it's something like 15 ingredients.
Yeah.
And mine is like salt, flour, and water, and the sourdough bug, which is flour, water, and microbes, and anything else I want to chuck in. But yeah, complete control and power of that situation.
I heard something about sourdough recently. Like there's some sourdough starters that are really old, right? Like I can't remember the number, but very, very old, hundreds of years.
There's a museum for sourdough starters. Yeah.
Really?
Yes. Cool.
Where?
Somewhere in Europe, and they all have their specific temperatures that they like to sit at. So it's sort of in these almost fridge spaces, and they all get their specific flowers sent to them. Yeah, by the owners.
That's interesting.
I know.
So that there's owners of the sourdough starters. In the museum,
they'll send a portion to the museum, and then provide their flour for them.
Sending upkeep.
Yeah.
for their babies.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, because there's different strains of bacteria and yeast and different bugs. Yeah.
And different regions and
so flavours and resiliency and all that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, it is fascinating. So my sourdough bug was gifted to me by my friend Moira, and she'd had it for 20 odd years, and then she was given it by Nanny Bella in Dunedin, who was gifted it on her wedding day, and she's in her 80s. So, and then I always say to people in workshops, it's like, but when it comes to your house, it becomes uniquely yours, because it will. Some of those strains of yeast and bacteria will fall away, and the strongest ones will stay, and then it'll feed off your body and your environment.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's cool.
That's a whole other world when you start looking at that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And the coolest experiment to do with your kids is mix some flour and water every day, feed it flour and water, and then till you've got your own pet. Yeah. And my kids would go across the deck like waving the bugs, like collecting wild yeasts and things. Yeah.
They're not catching butterflies at your house.
There might be one stuck in there.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So fun.
But they're learning so much that so many kids don't get to learn.
Oh, I love it. My daughter, the one who's nearly 12, I say the one, I only have one daughter.
That one.
She comes to all my workshops, and people ask her, and she always has the right answers for them. Like when they ask her questions and stuff, it's so beautiful to hear, and I feel that's when I sort of feel like most proud. I'm like, oh. Or like when the kids open up and they're like, "Have you got the starter for the next round of yogurt, or can we eat the whole? Can we eat the whole jar?" And I'm like, "Cool, they understand perpetual bugs. Like, this feels like real education."
You'll be able to pass down your sourdough starter to the next generation.
Like your inheritance. They'll be like, "Where's the rest?" Yeah, actually, one of the women who came on my first sourdough class online, she messaged me like 3 years later, or a couple of years later, and said that her daughter had just moved out of home, and she'd given her some sourdough bug to take with her, and she was so happy to give it, and her daughter was so thankful to receive it. Like, and I was like, this is a true gift, like amazing.
So from a sourdough in particular, because I guess bread that you would get at the supermarket, like the white sliced bread, is pretty rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the main benefits of
Yeah.
sourdough for someone compared to that commercial type bread?
Well, our commercial bread is really fast fermented. So it might be like a 20-minute rise. So the grains are like undigested and really harsh on our bodies. That's the main difference. And so in a sourdough, you've got this long fermentation period, and all the grains have phytic acid, which kind of like locks in the nutrients. And during soaking or fermentation, it's neutralized, unlocked, and now your body can access the majority, or a huge increase in those nutrients.
And do people find it easier to digest?
Absolutely. Way gentler on your system because the whole thing is pre-digested. So a lot of people who can't eat white bread can eat sourdough. And it's not gluten-free, but it's like gluten-reduced as well. And so a lot of people
is culture the right word in sourdough? Do the bugs in the sourdough, do they eat some of the gluten as part of the process? Like, so my brain's thinking of yogurt, where when you make yogurt, the culture consumes some of the lactose.
Right, yes, it's lacto-reduced, isn't it? Yeah.
So, but do you know if that's true?
It must be,
sourdough?
because it's gluten-reduced. Yeah. Or is it just a... Yeah, I think so.
We might have to
quick Google on that one, everyone. Pause. New tab.
Yes. Because it is, people definitely say that it's easier to
Absolutely. Yeah. And
and it tastes better.
Oh, it tastes so much better. It keeps you fuller for longer.
Yeah. Do you have a recipe that you can share with us?
Yeah. Okay, so a simple brine pickle would be while you are chopping the veggies for dinner, fill a jar with them. Any veggies. Could be a combination of broccoli, cauliflower, onion is delicious, garlic, cloves, mushroom, whatever.
Just any veggie that you would normally eat raw, that you're able to eat raw.
Yeah, I mean, you can ferment potato.
Oh, that's the next question. I was like, can you put a potato in it?
You can pretty much ferment anything.
We're in Southland. We need to know if you can ferment spuds.
Yeah, but I haven't put them in a brine pickle. But, I mean, so sort of like if you've got some leftovers, chuck them in. Make sure that you fill the jar to the top because our bad bacteria and mould do love air. So we want to minimise air. Jam all your veggies into the jar and pour over the brine. And your brine is a tablespoon of salt, any salt, to a litre of water. Dilute the salt, shake it up, pour it over, fill it right to the top, and lid it. And all those veggies are going to float because you haven't weighted them down, which is something you can do, but you might not have a weight yet. So just commit to shaking it morning and night, and that's going to disturb the surface so that mould can't settle. And you'll do that. Say you shook it for 5 days, then taste test it, and it'll be sour, delicious.
So just a tablespoon of salt to a litre of water.
Yep, and I always keep a jar of brine or a bottle of brine. Actually, I think it's in a Farm Fresh bottle. In the cupboard, so that if I've got leftover veggies, I go, done. And then, a week, a month, 6 months later, I've got probiotic goodness to add to a meal. Too easy.
And so when you eat that, you don't cook it when you eat it. You have it as is, right?
Yeah, this is raw probiotic, full of good bacteria.
Obviously, if you cook it, it'll kill the probiotics. Yeah.
So if you do cook your ferments, you still get the benefit that it's pre-digested. So that's cool. And you might not cook out all the bacteria. So, but generally we eat them raw. Amazing, eh? So then you've got these like little florets of cauliflower or broccoli that are fermented. You can chuck it on stew, in a wrap, in soup. Like I just generally aim to pull out a ferment with every meal.
Does it stay crunchy or does it go soft?
Most vegetables will stay crunchy. And there's things you can do down the track, like add in tannins to your brine pickle to increase the crunch level or maintain the crunch. But I also just like ferment in brine cucumber cubes or sticks or slices, and I know, it's a really high water content. It's going to go a bit mushy and go with it.
So I guess the key there is experiment.
Absolutely, yeah. And just be kind of open to it.
Yeah.
And there's sort of no, like, it has to be like this. It's never going to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or it might be, but it might not be the next time.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being willing to be playful,
Mm-hmm.
have a go, and taste test it, even if it's scary. Yeah.
So tell us, how can people find you if they want to know more?
Well, I'm the Ferment Kitchen on Facebook, and I don't have a website yet.
Cool.
But you can probably go to like the videos tab of my Facebook page, and there's a cool video on making like a bone broth, making coffee kombucha, and there's several. Yeah. And then you can just be in contact and like, have I got upcoming workshops? I do quite a few around Southland, and my sister and I just took the 5 kids up to like Picton, and we did workshops all the way up and back down.
Oh, that's cool.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got all these recordings available as well, like a brine pickle, sauerkraut, and kimchi, and all this kind of thing, kombucha.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to go and experiment.
Yeah. It's just starting on the journey. Yeah, because kind of you get the bug, and you're like, what else? What else can I have? Like nothing's safe anymore.
There's a cat in a jar.
Yes. The cat likes my yogurt. And,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, all these things.
You had me worried there for a minute.
Oh, no, you're not. I'm not fermenting the cat. The cat's eating the ferments.
Yeah. No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add before we finish up?
I don't have any pearls of wisdom that I could just spout out that would change the world. I wish I could say something like, grow a potato, buy some local milk.
Yeah. Well, I guess that is the key, really, is being aware of what you're eating.
Yep.
And change. For me personally, I've been trying to cut out as much processed food as possible over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And now if I go and have something that's processed, I regret it.
Yeah.
I regret it. It just makes me feel yuck.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not perfect all the time. Although my wife thinks I am.
Oh, that's nice.
No, not really.
I'm going with it.
But it's
your body gets used to the whole food
your body
for
gets
sure.
Used to it.
Yeah. Oh, like my children used to think that passata was tomato sauce, and then once they tried tomato sauce, they're like, "This tastes really sweet. It's yucky." Oh, sadly, now they like tomato sauce over passata.
So
but...
if people bring fizzy drink or anything, like if one of the kids brings a fizzy drink into our house, I'm like, "Why are you bringing that poison? Get that poison out of my house."
It's tricky though. Like, trying to raise children who can function in the world, and sort of be a part of stuff and not feel excluded all the time or be excluded through food, because it's such a big part of our culture, right? And like,
it's interesting.
But then also like keep this whole food diet.
Yeah. And it's interesting how much. So when I started cutting out processed food, I had put on weight, and I was probably 120 kilos, around about that, and I was snoring and had really bad acid reflux, and like at night and in my sleep, and I changed and went cut out everything overnight and all the sugar, and went just natural food, unprocessed.
Wow.
And the snoring stopped in 2 days. And the acid reflux stopped in 2 days before I lost any weight.
Wow.
That's how quick I noticed changes.
Okay, that's amazing. Wow.
But it's and eating yogurt.
Well, that's a ferment.
Probiotics.
Yeah.
So
good for your gut.
That's the key. But now I'm going to go try some other stuff.
Yeah, something with every meal.
Yeah.
That would be my key advice, actually. Although that's kind of ambitious for a beginner. Yeah.
But yeah, if you get it right.
Yeah, just like do something. Have a go. Be playful.
Oh, there might be some photos coming soon on social media.
Yeah.
Of my experiments.
Yeah. Kimchi is amazing to make. You know, like the ginger and garlic and chili. That's fun. Yeah.
I might try that.
Yeah.
I'll try it all. Try it all.
Yeah. Just a few more things to add to the list of things to do.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And look forward to experimenting at home. And check out your Facebook,
The Ferment Kitchen. Yep.
Sounds like there's some awesome videos there for people. Get some tips.
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll see you again.
See you around.